Hello and welcome back. I'm here to talk a little bit today about what an earnest money deposit is. So for those buying real estate, what happens is that once escrow is open, within 3 business days of going into escrow, the buyer needs to arrange to have an earnest money deposit sent over to the title company in some form or fashion. So what that typically looks like is either a check is dropped off to the title company, or the buyer makes arrangements for their bank to wire the funds over to the title and escrow company. And typically the earnest money deposit is 1% of the transaction price. So on a $500,000 home, that would look like a $5,000 check that's dropped off to the title and escrow company. And ultimately, that earnest money deposit can be refundable depending. So what it really is it's the buyer's skin in the game that offers the seller a little bit of resolution in case of something going sideways. And what I mean by that is ultimately if the buyer keeps moving forward in the transaction and removes all their contingencies that protect that earnest money deposit, and they say, hey, we're good moving forward, we want to move forward in this transaction and close it, and then they pass that timeline and then they change their mind and they decide that they want to back out of the transaction for some reason, then they stand to potentially forfeit that earnest money deposit over to the seller. So it's a little bit of protection from the seller about what could happen if the buyer doesn't fulfill their obligations. However, let's say that the buyer ultimately is still in their buyer investigation period of the transaction, and then they decide that they didn't like something about the home or something that popped up in the inspection. For whatever reason, they decide they want to back out of the transaction. Then ultimately, if they have not removed those contingencies that protect that earnest money deposit, they could back out of the transaction and still get their earnest money deposit refunded back from the title and escrow company. So some key things to know, again, typically in our area, earnest money deposits are typically 1% of the purchase price on a residential home purchase, and that it could be refundable with it, provided that the buyer has not passed their inspection contingencies and they are still in that period where they can back out and have it be refundable. So hope that clears it up. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.